Welcome back. Today we're going to be going through circles just a little bit more in depth. So in the previous video, what you had learned was about circles was the following equation: x squared plus y squared equals to r squared. Okay, but circles actually has a second equation where, let's say, for example, my origin or my center of the circle isn't actually at the origin. Okay, it's not at 0, 0. So in this case, the second equation is when the equation of the circle with the center h and k, which is a different center other than 0, 0, and the radius r is in the form of this. Okay, needs to look something like this: bracket x minus h squared plus y minus k, close the bracket, whole squared equal to r squared. Okay, that is the equation now. That is the second equation for this graph, the circle graph. Okay, it is where the h and the k comes from the following: from the coordinate of the center. Okay, this is probably the most important part. That's a little bit more different. The h and the k will be from the coordinate of the center. And yeah, the coordinates of the center, right? This one here, h is positive. So for h to be positive in the equation, h must be negative, just like so. Okay, if h was a negative, so for example like this, in the equation you would have to put in a plus here. Okay, it's that thing that we did with factorization, where you had to do, you've got this x minus 5 and x plus 2 is equal to 0, right? To work it out, you can write it down as x minus 5 equals to 0. How do I get 5 to the other side? I have to add it. I have to add 5. This will be crossed out, and x will equal to 5. So we just do the opposite of what it says in the coordinates, okay, for the equation. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. If not, go back to your notes on algebraic techniques and ask me any questions there. Okay, let's go to our first example. Our first example is, what are the coordinates of this center and the radius of the following equation? Bracket x minus 2 whole squared plus y plus 5 whole squared equal to 1. So let's just write our little equation, right, that we just learned: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equal to r squared. Okay, we're going to compare it. Now, my center needs to be in the form of this: h, comma, k. Okay, so looking at this, to find my center, so let's find my center first, right? To find my center, in my equation, this is a negative 2. Like I said before at the above, if your center coordinates here is a positive, that means in my equation, it needs to be a negative, right? I need to do the opposite of what it looks like in the center. So if in the equation it is a negative 2, that means my center coordinate for x will be positive 2. So I'll just do the exact opposite. Then my y coordinate for my center, this is a plus 5. Okay, what's the opposite of a plus 5? A minus 5. So I'm going to put that minus 5 as my y coordinate in my center coordinate. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, now to find my radius, okay, to find my radius, I do the exact same thing how I did from the last lesson for circles. So r squared should equal to 1. Okay. R squared should equal to 1. I want what R equals to, what my radius equals to. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of that squared. To get rid of it, I'm going to use the square root. The squared and the square root will cancel out. And if you put square root 1 into the calculator, that should give you 1. So the radius is 1. Now, question number B, sketch the graphs of x minus 2 whole squared plus y plus 5 whole squared equals to 1. So to do this is, luckily in the last question, we had been asked to find the center and the radius. So my first thing is what I'm going to do first is I'm going to plot the center coordinate. Okay, so I'm going to plot it. My center coordinate is +2. So I'm going to look on the x-axis, +2. And I'm going to go down 5. So about here. That's my center. So I'm just going to label it C as my center. Now I'm going to use, once I've plotted my center coordinate, I'm going to use the radius. So the radius needs to be 1 for the circle, right? So that means I'm going to just use the block, okay? This is 1 block, okay? This is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a point here, okay? I've gone 1 to the right. Let's go 1 to the left. Should be right here. Let's go 1 up. This will be around -4 there. And let's go 1 down, which is right here. Okay, so I use my radius to determine where the circle will look like. Okay, so in this case, my circle will look like the following. Just like that. It is 1 unit. Its radius is 1 unit. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's go to question C. It says, what transformation of the graph of x squared plus y squared equals r squared is required to produce this circle, the circle that we got up here? So x squared plus y squared equals to r squared. It's when the center is at the origin. So for example, let us do this. If let's say this is our circle with the origin at 0, right? What happened to the circle where I got to this new one here? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the center of my original one right here, and I'm actually going to count down how many jumps would I need to do to get me to here. Okay, so I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That will lead me to this type of circle here. Okay, but that's not the exact same circle. So now from here on, I'm going to, from here on here, this green one here, I'm now going to leap to the right. 1, 2, 3, making sure that center is where it's supposed to be, right? So I went 3 to the right and 5 down. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say. I'm basically going to say here, I'm going to say transformed the graph 5 units down and 3 units to the right. It's basically an instruction guide on how do I get from one place to my new circle. So where did my old circle come from, which is the old circle, which is the one that has the center of the origin, and how do I move that circle to my new circle here that I've drawn? Okay, hopefully that makes sense. My next example. Okay, example 2. Find the coordinates of the center and the radius of the circle x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 6y plus 9 equal to 0. Now, does that look like anything like this? I don't think so, right? There's no way. It doesn't. It just looks mumble jumbled. So my first things first is I'm going to try and make this equation, okay, into this form. Okay, so what you may need to use, okay, you may need to use completing the square. Again, this is a topic or concept that we learned in algebra. Okay, you might need to look at your notes again to see how you do this. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to rewrite my equation here. Just to start. So x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 6y plus 9 equal to 0. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, the first thing is I'm going to bunch where my x's are and my y's are together. So for example, I'm going to do this. My x squared is here. I have an x value here. Okay, this negative 4. And I'm just going to move it closer to where my x squared is, just like so. Then I'm going to put my plus y squared next to it. And I'm going to write 6 plus 6y next to my y squared plus 9 equal to 0. Once I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this plus 5 to the other side. To do that, I need to subtract it by 9 on both sides. This will cancel out. And what I'm left with is x squared minus 4x plus y squared plus 6y equal to negative 9. Now, from this point on, I need to use completing the square. Now, a little refresher on how to do the completing the square. This is how we're going to do it. So, thank goodness that I've grouped where my x's are and my y's are. This will make it much easier. To complete the square, I'm going to put the bracket, and I'm going to write down x squared minus 4x. To complete the square, I actually need to use that positive 4, that 4 there, sorry, not positive 4, that 4. Okay, and I'm going to divide it by 2. So I'm going to add a 4 over 2. So I get that 4 from this one here. And I'm going to divide it by 2, and I'm going to square it. Okay, I'm just going to close the bracket there, and I'm going to add bracket y squared plus 6y. And I'm going to now add, for completing the square, I'm going to add 6 over 2. And I'm going to whole square it. I'm going to close the bracket. And it should all equal to negative 4. But because this is an equation, right? If I add something to one side, I need to add to the other. So I need to add 4 over 2 whole squared, as well as 6 over 2 whole squared, just like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rewrite it again. X squared minus 4x plus, what is 4 over 2? That's 2 squared. I'm just going to write it down like this. The reason being is this will come in handy. Okay, plus y squared plus 6y plus 6 over 2 is 3. So 3 squared. Close the bracket. And what you can do here on the right-hand side, you can just write down negative 9 plus what is half of 4, which is 2, and whole square, that should be 4. And this one should be 9 as well. Okay, I'm just going to write it like that first before finding the total or whatever the answer is going to be. Once I've done that, I'm going to actually use these numbers here that I've added, okay, and going to make a perfect square. Okay, so the perfect square, how I'm going to write it down is I'm going to take this x squared, or sorry, this x, and see how the signs here on that 4 and this 2, it's different. So that means in my answer, in my perfect square, this must be a negative. And now I'm going to take this 2 that I've added into here, and I'm going to whole square it. Plus, I'm going to take the y. I'm going to double check. This 6 is a positive. This 3 is also a positive. That means in my perfect square, it's going to be a plus. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that 3, this one right here. I'm going to add it in, and I'm going to bracket and then square it. And that should equal me to whatever negative 9 plus 4 plus 9 is, which is 4. Okay, and that's my equation of the circle, because it looks exactly like this. Looks exactly like this in the green that I've highlighted. Okay, that's it for my second example. Hopefully that makes sense. I've broken down how to complete the square. Please ask me any questions if it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.